So everybody knows about arrow precision, but what about ballistic advantage?
Three, two, one.
Well, now that we've run that out, is it gonna run suppressed? Little gassy.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of dig the BA stuff, partly because it's a little bit of a different logo on there, but it's still got that arrow precision quality that a lot of us have come to expect. Jump right into the Ballistic Advantage build here. So we're gonna mainly just go over the Ballistic Advantage parts, and I'll kind of lightly touch on the things that I added to it. And of course, we'll talk about the performance and if there's anything I would change and all of that stuff. So make sure you check out the build list if you're interested in any of this stuff, but we'll go ahead and go from butt stock to business end here. On the end, I have the Fab Defense, the smaller one. It's kind of got that SOP mod profile. It's an okay stock. It's nothing to write home about. I had it laying around. Easy to use, easy to adjust right there, and it works with either a mil-spec or a commercial tube because there are these two different inserts. Standard mil-spec extension on there from Strike Industries. Again, it was something I had laying around. Bravo Company QD end plate. I love those. Put them on pretty much everything that I have or build because you can stake them without worrying about having issues with them. I only stake them generally in one place, and I stake them after I've decided exactly what I want. That way I don't have to take things apart again. So good stuff there. Gonna do everything you need. Getting into the lower receiver right here. Part of the reason I like the Ballistic Advantage stuff and the Arrow Precision stuff, because they are the same company basically, is they are forged upper and lower 7075 T6 aluminum, but they still have a really good look to them, a nicely flared magwell on there. They just did overall a great job with that design. Good clean lines, good solid stuff. That's why they have the reputation that they do. There are some cool things that are in these, specifically these set screws in the upper and lower right in this area. And then when the upper, we'll talk about that rather than having pins. So basic kind of lower parts kit, but I do have that Hyperfire EDT trigger in there that you can see right there. I love it, the enhanced duty trigger. It's meant for work guns. Things are going to be used. It's about the 4.5 pound mark, but it is very, very clean. We'll do some pulls in a minute. I've got the ambi safety set up in there, the long on the left side of it because I am right-handed, so I operate it mostly with my right thumb. And then it's a stubby on the offhand. I actually got that out of a tack pack. I like it because it completely fit the build, right? The Ballistic Advantage little little death spade right there. It fit it perfectly. The unfortunate thing is it's a 90 degree only. It doesn't have the 45 degree option, and I'm a 45 degree guy right there because when I use the 90s, it screws me all up. They do have the integral trigger guard right there that has some relief cuts out of it right there, lightens it up a little bit, gives it a good solid look. Then I threw a BCM grip on there. Good grips, they are great. They're not necessarily my favorite, but they do have a very good overall feel to them. Before we get into the upper receiver and the barrel, let's talk about the small parts in there. Ballistic Advantage charging handle right there. You can see that one side of the handle is slightly off in the anodization color. This was a blem, and I got it like dirt cheap. Don't be afraid to buy blems from like Ballistic Advantage or Arrow, because most of the times you can't find out why it's a blem. They are generally very good. So let's talk about the bolt, you know, the heart of this system right here besides the gas tube and all that, you know. So the bolt and carrier here, the carrier itself is 8620 steel, and the bolt is the 9310. So 8620 on the carrier and 9310 on the bolt, high pressure tested and magnetic particle inspected. It's got that sweet little Death Spade logo on there. It is nitride coated, easy to clean. This thing is going to do everything you're going to need it. You can see right there. Good job on the staking on the gas key. It is a very nice bolt and carrier system. I would recommend these for any build you're doing, especially for the price. And they have sales on these things all the time. You can get the nitride and sometimes even the nickel boron ones for like 140 bucks. For the material and the quality of these, definitely top notch. Let's go ahead and get into the upper receiver right here. The Ballistic Advantage and the Arrow upper receiver is the same forged 7075 T6 aluminum. It does have a little bit of a nicer kind of look than just standard mil-spec stuff. You can see it's got a cool look to it, right? But it is a solid quality product. As far as that secondary pin right here that I was talking about, that's a set screw instead of a roll pin. It's right there on your forward assist. So it makes that a little easier to install than having to drive a pin. Of course, you're going to see that Ballistic Advantage logo right up there. There are a couple of different uppers. This one has that logo, some of them don't. And of course, it is T-marked just like you would expect. For the optic, I'm just running that cheap Crossfire on there because I use that one for testing all the time. It's not what's going to stay on there. Strike Industries lightweight plastic enhanced cover right there, solid. It's polymer. It's all kind of one section, so you don't have the extended right there. Normally you would see that rod coming out, which is why that's relieved in the rail right there. So it's all one design. It's pretty cool. It's got a set pin in there that's on its own little spring. So you just kind of collapse it, push it in there, and you're good to go. Easy to put on, easy to take off. The rail, that is basically the Atlas S1 with the Ballistic Advantage logo. Like I said, Arrow and Ballistic are pretty much the same company. It's a very cool rail. The one thing I will say when we talk about running this thing hard, especially running it suppressed, it's gonna get hot because it's very, very thin on there and you're gonna get that heat into your hand. You're gonna know you are running it. As far as the barrel goes, I went with the B.A. Hansen profile barrel. So the Ballistic Advantage B.A. Hansen barrels are a kind of a proprietary profile. It's not like a M4 barrel or a heavy barrel or a pencil barrel. It's their own profile. Their barrels, the B.A. Hansen one, I think almost all of them, check me if I'm wrong on that. When you get the B.A. Hansen barrel, they come pinned and ready to go with the gas block. So you'll notice right in here, see if I can get that on camera, you'll see that the gas block is pinned. So what they do is they just kind of drill a relief area through the bottom of the barrel. And as you fit the gas block over the journal right there, that pin secures it. So even if your screws completely walked out on you, which would be pretty rare, that pin is going to keep that gas system running. Standard gas tube, mid-length gas system on this barrel. It is the 14.5. It is 4150 chromoly vanadium, and it is nitrided as well, QPQ nitride. If you don't know what that stands for, quench, polish, quench. So that's what that is. It is a 5.56. It is high pressure and magnetic particle inspected as well. 1 in 7 twist rate. So the Hansen barrel is also the barrel extension. So it has the M4 feed ramps up in there, but that whole barrel extension is NP3 coated, which is very nice because that area right in there, it tends to get dirty. That makes it easy to clean. And it lasts a very long time. Up here on the end, okay, so pretty much pin and welded everything I have at this point so I could run it, whether it's on a rifle or a pistol, if it's within that range and it's not one of my SBRs. So this is the Sons of Liberty Gunworks Knox brake. I love these and they fit my Sandman suppressors right there. So it had that pin and welded, company did it for me. The one thing I did notice, it was not Ballistic Advantage that did this, it was another company. You can see where the spacer has kind of walked a little bit right there. If you can see that, it's flush up here and it's down here. So they didn't torque it appropriately, most likely, before they did that pin and weld job on there. But hey, it is what it is. It's not going to go anywhere. It's welded on there. So that's a live and learn kind of thing. So the other thing on here was, I wanted to bring up, was the extractor on here. On that bolt is the S7 tool steel, which is definitely good because if you run a lot of steel, you are going to need that. Let's go ahead and talk about how this thing performed, how it ran, the gas system. Am I happy with it? Would I change anything? And overall, now that I have the Ballistic Advantage setup built, would I use Ballistic Advantage again? And this is the part where I add in the footage that we just forgot, which was the trigger pulls for this Hyperfire EDT, which is a mil-spec style trigger. But let's go ahead and take a look right here so you can see minimal kind of take up right there. There's a little bit of movement in there. That is pretty normal for mil-spec style triggers, but we have a very good break on this. So you'll see you kind of hit that wall and then it breaks. The reset right there. So let's go ahead and do a couple pull tests on this. So if you guys are interested in the Hyperfire EDT, you will know kind of what it's going to pull at. So it's a 4.5 pound spring in there. I did pull a little low because that's where I try to get my finger. So you can see that's going to pull just sub 4 pounds. I'll pull a little higher to kind of demonstrate for you guys where you place your finger. Trust me, this spring in here also, it's going to make even hard primers go. The spring, even though it's a little bit lighter, it's a whacker. So I'll go a little higher, kind of right there. Make sure I'm pulling straight. And you'll see we get about just over 4 pounds. So about 4 pounds and 4 ounces. Let's just do one more at that kind of same place. Give you guys a really good feel for that trigger. So even though it's that 4.5 pound spring, you kind of see where I'm pulling and you see the weight it's pulling at. Good solid stuff. Now let's talk about everything else. All right, let's talk about how the Ballistic Advantage 14.5 performed out there. If you guys have never done builds on your own before, there's just something about the first time when you're running this thing pretty hard out there, especially with a suppressor and all the chemicals, the anti-seize, the oil, and whatever compound you used around the barrel extension. The way that stuff kind of smells when it all burns off, and you can see it smoking in that video. It's just something that you come to understand and learn once you've built a few things out there. So getting into how the thing ran, both suppressed and unsuppressed, ran with zero issues out there. I ran a little bit of steel ammo. I had a little bit left, mostly 55 grain and some 62 grain stuff. I didn't run any self-defense ammo because it's really expensive right now and I am low on that. So overall, pretty good. Couple things I did notice, however. Now, most importantly, on a build like this one, you've got to be concerned about the gas system, the barrel port in there. Are you carbine, mid-length, rifle length, whatever you are building? Is your buffer system set up? I will say this one with a carbine buffer is very close to being gassed right. But I think even with a good solid brake like this one, that Sons of Liberty Gunworks Knox brake, I think an H1 is really where it would need to sit on the 14.5 running the full M16 style bolt and carrier. I think it's right about there because as you saw, and I'll roll in a little bit of footage here, once I got that suppressor on, I could just tell by the ejection pattern, it needs probably suppressed. I'm just gonna say H2, most likely an H3 to really put this thing where I want. If you don't know anything about testing stuff out, especially suppressing or trying to figure out the buffer weight or the gas system, there's lots of different ways you can go about it. You can get an adjustable gas block. That's not the route I choose to go because I don't want to have to mess around with stuff in there. I'd rather make sure my gas tube is right and just mess with the buffer if you can get it to run the way you want in there. And how you're going to do that is just checking that ejection pattern. Is it ejecting really forward? Is it ejecting straight out around the 4 o'clock or is it ejecting way back here? The thing I like to do is usually start with probably an H1 and most things are going to be fine with a carbine buffer. But I would say on this suppressed, just the way that ejection pattern looked, it probably needs an H3. Now, when you do the testing on that yourself, you want to do that dirty. You want that gun to be very dirty and you want to run it dirty because that's going to affect how that bolt is going to reciprocate in there and in that buffer tube and everything. That is the way you want to test it because if you go too heavy and you test it on something clean, once it gets dirty, you could start to introduce malfunction. So that is always something to keep in mind. When you're going to mess with the buffer system, do it when it's super dirty. That way you know it's going to run not only when it's super clean, which it should be most of the time, but when it's excessively dirty. And I mean excessively dirty. As far as the B.A. Hansen barrels out there, they have a very good reputation and they do have that sub MOA guarantee. I didn't do a ton of long stuff with this. I didn't really have the opportunity to go past anything, probably about 50 yards the times that I was out there with this. What I will tell you is, as long as you put this thing together right with this barrel, it's going to be as accurate as you are going to be. So knowing that it ran perfectly, is there anything I would change on this? Yes, there are a couple of things. One, they now have their 13.9 barrel out, and I think they have a 13.7 too. That would be my preferred choice because it brings that barrel to the absolute shortest it can be. You pin and weld your brake on there, and you now have a 16-inch setup with the muzzle device as short as possible for running that suppressor. And you still get all of those good ballistics out of a barrel that has a little bit more length. You're keeping your velocity, keeping all the good ballistics you want out of your ammunition, especially if you are running the good stuff. The other thing I would say is the rail. So This rail is nice. It's great to get your hand around. It's fun out there. But when you start running this really slim rail suppressed, you are going to know, because it gets excessively hot. I was probably 3 to 4 mags in of, pretty rapid fire running some drills out there. And it got to the point where I was like thinking about putting a glove on. So that's something to keep in mind. Ballistic Advantage and Arrow does have the thicker rail, the R1, I think it's called. Or you can go with whichever rail you so choose. But anytime you get a thinner, small radius rail like this that gets closer to the barrel, you are going to absorb more of that heat. The only other thing I would really say I would change on here is going to be that safety lever. And the reason for that is, I like the way that one looks. I like the way that it performs. The difference is I don't like 90-degree safeties because I run generally the radians in a 45-degree configuration on pretty much everything else that I have. So when I run into a 90-degree safety now, it just kind of messes me up the first couple times I actually go to get out there on the range. I'll start doing drills with it, and it just kind of messes me up. Sometimes I'll actually kind of stutter and I'm already on the trigger and I haven't really disengaged the safety all the way. And that just goes to show you that little changes in rifles like this can make a huge difference. And then the only other thing, like we talked about, is going to be that buffer. So what are the future plans for this thing? I'm not gonna run this rifle a ton, but I think I am probably going to put a light on this. Probably just gonna be the ProTac from Streamlight. I love those lights. If you guys haven't seen my videos on those, I will link them down below, but they are good lights. I've got one here, so you can kind of see how they are, just like that. Got it on an Arasaka mount, and then I have the Cloud Defensive lighting control system right there, which is something that's really good, especially when you want a good solid mount, because Streamlight's a good light, but they come with it's a pretty poor mounting system for the pressure pad here. And I've been using the Cloud Defense one on a couple of builds. However, I have recently come across one from a company called Schaefer Machining, which is super slick. You can see how tight it is to the rail. It's billet aluminum, M-LOK, and it is very nice because it keeps you right there on point where you want that light, and it fits that pressure pad absolutely perfectly. I'll have another video on that coming out fairly soon. I talk about some more different lights. Other than that, I'll probably leave this thing pretty much the way it is to include this crossfire. I think I'm gonna stop taking that one from rifle to rifle and just leave it on this one. So that being said, definitely happy I built the Ballistic Advantage version of this. I do like the Ballistic Advantage stuff. I like the logo, a little death spade. I like it a little bit better than the Arrow Precision one. And there, let's just face it, it's coming off the same machine that the Arrow Precision ones are coming off of. If you don't know Arrow, look it up. Arrow makes a lot of stuff for a lot of other people out there with different name brands on it. So my advice to you would be definitely be choosy, even with the small parts like the safety selectors. Put some time into planning out your build so you get it right the first time and you don't end up doubling up or spending different money on different things, because that's gonna save you money in the long run. But that's what I've got for you guys today on the Ballistic Advantage build here. Make sure you guys get subbed up, get belled up, turn those notifications down there to all on, and check out that build list if you guys are interested in any of this stuff or any of the stuff you saw on those. And of course, a huge thank you to all of my Patreons, because you guys are an absolutely huge amount of help, and it's a ton of fun talking with you guys online. You guys get out there and have some fun on the range. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I will see you guys on the next one.